The 2025 MotoGP season has already given fans plenty of unforgettable moments. But what happened during the Brno Sprint race took things to an entirely new level. It was more than just a race. It turned into a tense showdown where strategy, technology, and the rulebook collided. Marc Marquez may have claimed his 11th sprint win of the year, but what almost happened could have changed everything. This wasn't just another victory lap. It was a clear example of how MotoGP today is a game of fine margins, where tiny differences in timing or tire pressure can make or break champions. Let's start with what fans actually saw. Marquez overtook Pecco Bagnaia at turn 3, triggering what seemed like a smooth Ducati 1-2. But by lap 6, things started to go sideways. First, Pecco slowed down. Then, a lap later, so did Marquez. Both willingly dropped positions. And no, it wasn't a bad call. It was damage control in response to one of MotoGP's most controversial rules. The rule? Riders need to keep their front tire pressure above 1.8 bar for at least 60% of the race. If not, they risk a heavy time penalty, 8 seconds in a sprint race, 16 in a full-length one. Marquez came dangerously close to falling into that trap. Pecco was the first to get the warning on his dash that his front pressure had dropped too low. So he let Pedro Acosta pass, hoping that riding in his slipstream would heat up the Michelin front tire. But things quickly went off the rails. "I was just trying to manage it," Pecco said afterward, clearly worn out and frustrated. Even after trying to put more load on the front, the pressure wouldn't rise. "I completely messed it up." His problems didn't stop there. He got tagged by Enea Bastianini and then passed by Fabio Quartararo. Pecco tried to recover but never managed to regain pace, eventually finishing in 7th. He looked crushed, convinced a time penalty was coming, but none came. So, what happened? Turns out Ducati's own dashboard had misled him. "When I got back to the garage and saw the data, I realized I was never actually under the limit," he said, still trying to process it. "From lap 2 on, I was fine." So yeah, it was a dashboard issue. It wasn't a mistake on Pecco's part, it was an electronic glitch before the race even began. And that made the whole thing sting even more. Right before the race, Ducati had been scrambling to make last-minute changes to Pecco's dashboard. Somewhere in that rush, something went wrong with the setup, leading to a corrupted configuration. That glitch sent out a false warning, one that convinced Pecco to throw away his own race. "Normally, I wouldn't have let anyone pass," he said. "My pressure was actually fine, but the bike was telling me it wasn't, so I reacted. Just really unlucky." While Pecco's plan fell apart, Marc Marquez stayed calm under pressure. But don't take that calmness to mean he wasn't in trouble too. He was in the same risky situation. "I felt good on the bike," Marquez explained, "but then I saw the pressure was dropping. I tried pushing hard on the brakes for a few laps to build it back up, but it was getting too risky." So he tucked in behind Acosta, sat there for several laps, and waited for the tire to warm up. Once the dashboard confirmed he was back in the safe zone, he made his move, passing Pedro on the second-to-last lap and cruising to another win. But during the post-race interviews, things took a turn. When asked if he stayed within the pressure limit, Marc nodded and smiled. Then he was told he was under investigation. "The funny thing is," he said, "when you asked me in park firm, I didn't even know. Now they tell me I was being looked at, but I was sure my dashboard showed I was fine." What came next was a surprise twist. MotoGP stewards put out a bulletin saying Marquez, along with AI Ogura and Alex Rins, had been flagged by mistake. Turns out, the tire pressure monitoring system used by Race Direction had a calibration issue. The team's readings were right. The official system wasn't. A MotoGP later explained the post-race check on riders 93, 42, and 79 found that Race Direction's warning system had an incorrect minimum pressure setting. Because of that, no further action or investigation was needed. All 3 riders were within the proper range. This isn't the first time Marquez has used this kind of sharp race awareness. Earlier this season in Brno, he let his brother Alex pass him mid-race to bring his own tire pressure back up. Then, once it was legal again, he retook the lead. "I saw the pressure improving behind Acosta, just like it did in Brno," he said. "So I waited again." This is racing. Engineers always try to work right up to the edge of the rules to squeeze out performance. This time, that edge came with complications. The resurfaced track in Brno, with its unusually high grip levels, threw off everyone's expectations. With no dry track time on Friday, teams had little data to work from. As it turned out, the rear tires were gripping so well that it became nearly impossible to generate enough force on the front. That left riders across the grid skating close to the pressure minimums all weekend. With this win, Marquez stretched his championship lead to 95 points over his brother Alex, who ended the race in 17th and 156 points ahead of Pecco. It marked Marquez's 11th sprint victory of the season, with Silverstone being the only one that slipped away. For Pecco, the Brno Sprint added yet another frustrating episode to a season filled with avoidable mistakes, bad luck, and chances that just haven't gone his way. Still, he did his best to stay positive. It sounds odd, but I'm actually kind of happy about today, Pecco admitted. For the first time, I was able to fight for pole. I did it. Marc went down while he was 2/10 quicker, but I still got pole. And the upside? I was right behind him. I started to understand more things that mattered. Pecco knows exactly what he's up against. Right now, he's incredibly smooth, he said about Marquez. I tried to stay with him, but once the problem started, I lost focus. While the spotlight stayed on the Tyre controversy, Pedro Acosta quietly bagged another sprint podium. The rookie from KTM stayed composed and confirmed afterward that he knew Marquez was going to come back. I expected Marc to take the lead again, he said. Bastianini made the most of the mid-race chaos, fighting his way to a solid podium finish. He even had to hold off a charging Marco Bezzecchi in the final laps, proof that his racing instincts are still sharp. But one of the most impressive rides of the day came from Fabio Quartararo on a Yamaha that's clearly down on power. He managed to finish 5th, outrunning both factory Ducatis on pure pace. It was one of those performances that reminded everyone just how much talent he has, especially when things get unpredictable. I'd love to see him on a better Yamaha. One fan commented, and plenty agreed. Off the track, the tire pressure rule stirred up heated debate. MotoGP legend Carl Fogarty didn't hold back on social media. This tire pressure rule is a joke. Who cares what pressure you run? Marquez defended the rule by pointing to safety, but even he suggested the penalties might be too harsh. 8 seconds in a sprint, 16 in a GP. Maybe that's over the top. Maybe just cut it in half. He suggested that he pointed out just how much pressure teams are under now, not just on the strategy side, but also with electronics, calibration, and keeping communication tight. For engineers, the easiest thing to do is just load up tire pressure and let the rider complain, he said. But they're always aiming to give us the best possible performance. The tire pressure rule was brought in for safety reasons, and on paper, it makes sense. Running too low of a pressure increases the chances of a tire carcass failure, especially during heavy braking. But what played out in Brno showed how messy the rule can be when put into practice. Technical glitches, bad data, and misreadings can flip a race upside down, and not always in a fair way. What makes it worse is that riders don't even have access to the official race direction monitoring system. Teams rely on their own dashboards and alerts, but as Pecco's false warning showed, even those aren't foolproof. The rule is invisible, strict, and for many, just plain unfair. But there's some hope that things could improve when Michelin introduces its new 140mm front tire in 2026. And with Pirelli stepping in by 2027, more changes are expected. But until then, riders are stuck in a game of tire pressure roulette in a race that could have easily derailed his title run. Marquez didn't just make it through. He came out on top. He spotted the signs, stayed sharp, and executed his tire pressure recovery plan so smoothly that most people didn't even notice it was happening. That's the difference. That's why he's still the guy to beat. As one insider put it, he's not just fast. He's smart under pressure.